Hey, I'm Alex Mercer. Today, the Rolling Stones' legacy. Who were they at the beginning? How did a scrappy blues band from Dartford become one of the biggest cultural and financial machines in rock history? And perhaps more importantly, what did they do right that we can learn from if we're building creative lives that last a long time? Let's go. So, picture this. Two school kids from Dartford, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, who'd once crossed paths at school, bump into each other properly at a train station in 1961 and, believe it or not, start talking about American records. Chuck Berry, Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf. That shared obsession with the blues is the single most important origin story for the Stones. Brian Jones then emerges as the scene's early instigator, a multi-instrumentalist and impresario of sorts, and he names the band after a Muddy Waters tune, Rollin' Stone. That name alone tells you where their hearts were. By the early 60s, they're living the London R&B club circuit, the Crawdaddy, Eel Pie Island, small sweaty rooms where authenticity mattered. They were explicitly positioned as the raw alternative to the Beatles' tidy pop persona, the grittier, more sexual, more dangerous answer to mop-top England. You can't overstate how important that contrast was for their brand. Every scandal, every sleazy gig poster, every sneer fed a kind of mythology that would follow them forever. The band's lineup hardened when Charlie Watts and Bill Wyman joined. Suddenly you had this immovable rhythm section. And that's when the Jagger-Richards partnership starts to become a machine. They shift from covers to original songwriting, and then, boom! I Can't Get No Satisfaction changes everything. It's not just a hit, it's a declaration. This band can write indelible anthemic music, and they'll use it to fuel a global career. From the mid-60s through the early 70s, they go through a golden run. Beggar's Banquet, Let It Bleed, Sticky Fingers, Exile on Main Scent. Those records mix blues, country, gospel, soul, and rock in ways that still sound wild. And then there's the bad boy image, drug arrest, scandalous lyrics, Altamont, which paradoxically increased their notoriety and appeal. Controversy became part of the product, and they knew how to perform it. But they also survived internal tragedies. Brian Jones's addiction and estrangement culminated in his departure in 1969 and his death shortly after. His multi-instrumental textures were crucial to their early sound, and losing him left a real creative hole. Into that hole stepped Mick Taylor, a sublime player whose fluid lyrical leads helped shape Sticky Fingers and Exile's guitar voice. Taylor wasn't a social match for Keith. He was quieter, but musically, he took the band up another level. Then Taylor burns out and leaves in the mid-70s. That could have been the end of a certain era, but Ronnie Wood comes in, and he's precisely the antidote. Scrappy, loose, a foil for Keith rather than a rival. Wood's chemistry with Keith stabilized the group socially and sonically. Later, Bill Wyman leaves in the early 90s. The band stops treating new players as full members and instead hires long-term sidemen like Darryl Jones on bass, which turns the Stones into more of a core partnership, Jagger, Richards, Wood, with rotating collaborators. And then, of course, Charlie Watts' death in 2021, that was a gut punch. Charlie's drumming was the heartbeat of the band, taste, swing, restraint. The decision to continue with Steve Jordan was controversial to some, but it also followed a pattern. Honor, adapt, move forward. That's the Stones' DNA. They absorb loss, they mourn, and they keep the music alive. So why have they lasted? A few core reasons. First, musical flexibility. They never chased trends slavishly, but they were willing to incorporate funk, disco textures, a little punk energy, or modern production when it served the song. Second, the Jagger-Richards dynamic. Think of it like a long, messy marriage. Arguments, separations, reconciliations, but the chemistry keeps producing work. Third, relentless touring and a work ethic that treated live performance as a renewable asset. Fourth, business discipline. Listen, Mick Jagger has a reputation for being a hard-eyed manager of the Stones brand. Touring strategy, smart merchandising, licensing decisions, and rights management all turned a band into a global enterprise. They were pioneers of stadium-scale shows, huge production, theatrical staging, and a sense that a Stones tour was an event you had to travel for. And fifth, they learned to live with age. Different diets, pacing tours, making the show tighter and smarter rather than more debauched. Then there's the myth-making. The tongue and lips logo is one of the most recognizable symbols in music. It's merch, identity, and cultural shorthand all in one. Their catalogue, the Jagger-Richards songs especially, is a financial asset that keeps paying. Syncs, movies, streaming playlists, those songs keep showing up in new contexts, and that freshness keeps the Stones relevant to younger listeners. On the scale question, exact lifetime earnings are slippery, but nobody disputes the magnitude. Various industry estimates place their total gross, touring, records, publishing, merch, licensing, comfortably in the billions. Single megatours have grossed hundreds of millions. Voodoo Lounge, A Bigger Bang, No Filter. These are among the highest grossing tours in history. Individually, core members like Jagger and Richards are widely reported to be worth hundreds of millions each. The lesson? Ownership, consistency, and smart business choices compound over decades. What should creatives take from this? First, build assets, not just moments. Songs, rights, brand identity, those are durable. Second, be relentless about your live product. Touring can eclipse record income if you make it an experience. Third, cultivate productive conflict. The chemistry between Jagger and Richards drove both creativity and problems, but it kept the engine running. And lastly, don't confuse myth with immortality. The Stones evolved from ragged blues players into careful custodians of a global cultural asset. Look, the Stones are a reminder that a band can be both art and corporation, both heartbreak and balance sheet. They started as kids in Dartford with a trunk full of 78s, dug for the roots of American music, and turned that obsession into decades of reinvention. It's inspiring and a little unnerving, because when you hear them now, you're listening to something that will almost certainly outlast its creators. Next week, we'll take a similar look at another long-running act and compare their business strategies to the Stones. If you like this, tell a friend, and hey, go listen to Exile on Mainstay loud, preferably on a bad speaker. I'm Alex Mercer. Thanks for listening.